Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, 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 everybody. I feel like I should put myself in. I feel like I should put myself in a virtual background. I now have virtual background envy of Sam. He looks like Sam. You look like you're in a proper rock studio of some sort. So, and then Kiefer just looks like Kiefer's in some kind of futuristic land. So I'm loving where Kiefer looks like. You look like you are today.
That's actually just my office background, but thank you.
There you go. I'll put myself in the Millennium Falcon, so I feel like I'm somewhere useful. Gail's in a soundproof room. I'm not sure what that says about where Gail is or how loud Gail is. I'm not sure which one of those it would
Yes, that's probably a good question. Thanks, Phil.
But welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. You can see we've got lots of people coming in still. Neil, it looks like your camera might be facing your desk. Just to give you a heads up, I'm not sure if that's where you want your camera to be. And it looks as though your camera's facing your desk at the minute. Welcome along, everybody. If you'd be willing to let me know in the chat, what's your favorite day of the week? Favorite day of the week in the chat. What would that be? You can include weekends if you want to. They are part of the week. I'm not going to make it working week only. So in the chat, favorite day of the week and why, if you fancy sharing. And why, that'd be wonderful to include as well. Justine's in early. Fastest fingers first, Justine. Congratulations, well done. Friday for you. Friday as well. Jess, not just Friday, says Jess. No, it's got to be Friday. Ali says the same. Common theme Friday. Sam goes for Saturday. Okay. Ellen Friday. Emily Saturday. Is anybody Wednesday? I like Wednesdays. Wednesday's my favorite day of the week. Yeah, quite like Wednesday, I do. Why Wednesday, Gail? So I think it's the signal that you're on the downward kind of stretch to the weekend. So if I was gonna, if the metaphor was that the week is like the working week anyway, is a hump, then it feels like Wednesday you've reached the peak of that. So once you get like past midday Wednesday, it's all downhill from here into the weekend. Sam says Saturday unless you've taken Friday off, then it's Friday. Okay, fair enough. So basically just being off then, Sam, would that be fair? Just being off for you is the thing.
Just a full day of freedom, but not, without Sunday, then you got the fear of Monday coming in. So
okay. And where in the world are you, Sam? Sounds like there's an Australian twang to the accent there.
yeah, I'm from Sydney, Australia, but I'm based in London, or just near Kingston, Surbiton.
Oh, nice. Lovely. Gail says very optimistic. Wednesday can also be the middle of the marshland. Yeah, I can get that. Feel like you're wading through treacle and you're stuck in a marsh of some sort. I can get that. All right. Let's just see if we've got anybody else in the waiting room. I think we've got one more person just waiting to join us. And then we might be good to go, I think. All right. Looks like Paul is in somewhere very mountainous. I'm not going. I would be bold enough to try and guess where that one is. Where's that, Paul?
Austria.
Austria, nice.
So, but unfortunately, that's not the view from the window currently.
Ah, right, okay. Is that a view of somewhere you've been then?
Yeah. If you know me of old, yeah. So that's my place of safety, shall we say? So, yeah. So yeah, up in the mountains, lovely place, and yeah, can leave everything else behind.
Nice. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. All right then. As we're at 12:05, we have nobody in the waiting room. I'm going to work on the basis that everyone who's here is meant to be here. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. Welcome to our webinar today. It's wonderful to have you all here. We are very excited to be talking to you about measuring training or talking with you, actually. I say talking to you. That's not a phrase I like. I much prefer to talk with you. So to talk with you around measuring training impact today. Before we do that though, I think it's time for a word from our sponsors, maybe. I don't think that does Jan justice, though, to be fair. So thank you very much, Jan, for organising and coordinating our gathering today. And shall I hand over to you? A bit of an intro and a bit of context setting for me.
Well, thank you, Phil. And by the way, Phil, thank you so much for hosting today's edition of our Blended Stories. I will give a quick overview of what we do and how we do it. And actually, spoiler alert, I have a bit of an announcement. I am trying to see which slide you're seeing. I think the wrong one. Is that correct? Or are you seeing make more training
Make more training impact?
Yeah, make more training impacts, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so that's a good start. That's what we do, making more training impact. We work with training companies, training providers. What does that mean? Well, we work on two things, quality and quantity. Quality means that we look at designing blended online learning, creating that and enable you to deliver that at scale. Sometimes we talk about content strategy in there as well, and of course, impact measurement, and that's what we're talking about today. On the quantity side, that really means scaling the training business, getting more learners in there. And for that, we quite often organize workshops such as business modeling, launching new products, entering new markets. And funny enough, our more popular one seems to be pricing strategy. With regards to what we actually do, because some people start thinking that we're an event business, because we do quite a lot of these. We're not. We do learning platforms. So we're a real learning technology platform business. Learning platforms, contents, both bespoke and libraries, and the services and consultancy to make all that work for and with training companies. On the left-hand side, you see the word research. Because we like an evidence-based approach, we commission research, we work with universities, but we also collect case studies, and then we like sharing that with the community. And we all do that based on our principles, but training is a people business, and technology is there for scale, consistency, but also improving the learner experience through personalization. I was talking about the research side, so some examples here. We worked with Oxford on UK training provider trends. That was last year. We do case studies with customers. We actually are working on 2 at the moment, both in the UK and in America. So also different places. And the sharing of that is this webinar, which we do every month, Blended Stories, but we also do a conference. And for people that can look at the pictures in this slide, they will find Phil again, who presented last week, 2 weeks ago now, at our conference in London. We'll do that again next year, by the way, in 2025, which we're now preparing. Now, I was saying something about an announcement. We have some breaking news. Part of measuring impact is the ability to measure. And we've been working with L&D, training providers, many other people, stakeholders in the industry, to develop a platform, which we are calling INMISCEO SIP. We are launching this next month. So we're talking about November now. And what does it actually do? Well, it's for training providers, and it enables training providers to create a training needs analysis, understand the learner's knowledge and skill levels based on their job roles. Of course, get a lot specifically regular impact data, post-training impact data, and that enables also to check if the business goals were achieved. And well, you can see some advantages there that we believe that it brings us benefits for training providers. The invitation here is to join the First Mover program to trial this new platform with your customers. And I will share very quickly this slide. I'm going to take this away in about 3 seconds, but at the end of this conversation, then we can share this slide again to join the First Move program, but also you can see that there is the Kirkpatrick evaluation newsletter from Phil's business that is really good to learn more about measurement, and we'll put this up again later. Thank you, Phil.
Wonderful, thank you, Jan. I'm worried that you've done SIP a bit of a disservice there. So one of the ways that SIP works is by looking at a role profile and what are the knowledge and skill areas that role profile is likely to have. So you might say a customer service assistant, or you might say a sales manager, or you might say a quality advisor or something like that. And then what the software has done is looks at the knowledge and skills for each of those role profiles to then enable individuals to do that self-assessment, both in terms of what they think they know, but also how confident are they in what they can achieve. And so what that gives you is both baseline data in terms of like a training needs analysis. It also though gives you baseline data in terms of how you might want to track things over time. So I'm conscious that I think Jan wants to give us as much time to speak as possible, and I'm worried that he's rushed through SIP without giving it maybe its due kind of grounding. And what I really like about it is how a lot of the hard work that we as training providers might need to do in terms of doing that mapping around what might be the knowledge and skill areas that are needed to be successful in this role. Jan's, what SIP has got for us there is a real good starter for 10. So it just makes our life a little bit easier, and potentially makes our clients' life a bit easier as well, because there's something pre-programmed and ready. Would that all be fair to say, Jan?
Well, thank you for your kind words. And yes, the whole goal, and it took a year and a half of research, by the way, to end up with this MVP. Basically, the premise is that today the UK spent on external training providers. So the people in the room, cumulative revenues that we create as training companies is about £3 billion in a year. Now, with things like AI coming up, a lot of customers of training providers, L&D, are actually enabled to do a lot more themselves, which means that if we don't take the opportunity, that £3 billion could, in my opinion, easily turn into £2 billion, which means that the industry would shrink. On the other hand, if training providers could really engage with their customers, collaborate more, this was one of the outcomes from 2 weeks ago, then that £3 billion could also turn into £4 billion. And that's, of course, what we're trying to enable, grow this industry, make sure that training providers can get longer term relationships with their customers. And I think that's one of the pleasant side effects of this, but measuring impact is the key element that we need to do. We need data first.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you, Jan. So if you would like to know more, then as Jan said, you can join the First Mover program, which we'll put the QR code back up for later. Or if you want to know more, please let us know in the chat as we work our way through. So what I would like to do is I would like to find out a bit more from you. I'd like to find out a bit more from you about a few different things, and we're going to start with a nice easy introduction in terms of something that I would like to know a little bit more from you about. So Jan, would you mind just popping up our first poll for us, please? So if you could choose, would you prefer to experience sunset? Would you prefer to experience sunrise? Would you prefer to experience the Northern Lights? Or would you prefer to experience something else? So the poll is open. We've got 37 people in the room, so I'll be able to get a perspective on how we're doing when to think about how many people have participated so far. So I can see that we're 70% of the way there, 83% of the way there. So just 6 people left to go. Is it sunset, sunrise, Northern Lights, or something else? So I went to experience the Northern Lights once, and I was unsuccessful in my experience. There was like a green kind of, I don't know, like a green hue, or just like a kind of a green sort of yeah, sort of, I don't know, haze in the sky maybe. But we didn't get to see the Northern Lights, so I'm still yet to experience them. And I think for me though, it would be a sunset. There's nothing like sitting somewhere on a beach or somewhere nice and warm and just watching the sunset. Just being there while it sets is something that I really enjoy. All right, so we'll give it another 10 seconds then. So we've got 3 people that haven't participated yet, and that's okay. Just to give you your last chance if you wanted to. So we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They were in the UK sky 3 weeks ago. Lovely, Gail. That's wonderful. All right, so the Northern Lights is the winner with 42%. Sunrise second with 30%. Sunset with 21%. And then something else at 6%. Whoever the something else was, because that would have been a few of you. So that would have been sort of what that would have been. Yeah, a few of you that would have said something else. So if there's something else, please let us know in the chat what that something else was. I'd be really delighted to hear what that something else was. And then we have another question for you. So here's the results so you can see those. So yeah, Sunrise 21, Sunrise 30, Northern Lights 42, something else 6. And then, yeah, would you mind opening the other poll for us? If that would be
Absolutely. This is sorry, the slow part here. Here comes the next one.
So if you could choose, which ice cream flavor are you most likely to choose? Now, we were limited in the choices that we could offer you because Zoom only has a limit on the responses that you can put in. So I decided to go like 1970s with rum and raisin, because it feels like that's a proper retro ice cream flavor. And then we also have, you can choose from vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, something else. I debated changing out strawberry for salted caramel, but we went for strawberry. But we go for that. Could have had a raspberry ripple potentially, or a mint choc chip. Could have been some other options, but we could only have 5 options in the poll. So let's see what we can get. Well, certainly it looks like, yeah, we didn't pick the right options in the poll, because we have.
I'm highly surprised that there is no strawberry vote yet. That'd be my first one. Yes.
That'd be your first one. Okay. So if anybody wants to get Jan a gift, you can give it. You can give Jan in person. Don't send it in the post because it might melt. Strawberry ice cream is the way to go.
Actually,
okay.
It's much nicer to instead of go for a coffee, let's go for an ice cream.
I will absolutely go with that. I can eat ice cream any day of the week and twice on a Sunday. I will happily eat ice cream all the time. Okay, so we'll give you 10 more seconds then. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll close the poll there. So something else is the runaway winner. And if you'd be willing to let me know in the chat then, what is that something else? What's the flavor that you would have gone for? Strawberry got nothing. Nothing at all for strawberry. Vanilla was second last with 6%. Rum and raisin, 25%. And then chocolate was 16. What have we got coming in then? See, this is interesting. For the something else on the what would you like to experience, I didn't get any responses in the chat, but now for ice cream, everyone is piling in. I'm absolutely loving it. So Carsten says hazelnut or walnut with a shot of amaretto poured over. Nice. I love the addition of the amaretto as well. Like, salted caramel, says Marta. Pistachio, salted caramel, raspberry ripple every day of the week, says Lynn. That's a definite one for raspberry ripple. Cookie dough, that's my daughter's favorite, or my youngest daughter's favorite is cookie dough. Ben and Jerry's cookie dough in particular, although other ice cream cookie dough flavors are available. Gail says mint choc. Sam honeycomb. Joanna also mint choc. There you go, Gail and Joanna, you need to get together for a mint choc ice cream. Pistachio again as well. Celebrating the mint choc chips. Lovely, wonderful. Okay. All right, so what I've been aiming to do over the first couple of questions is to get your voices into the room. Now I'm getting your voices into the room in 2 different ways. So partly I'm getting your voices into the room through your responses to the poll, also getting your voices into the room in terms of in the chat. So I've got one more poll question for you before we start to bring maybe your actual voices into the room. And that is, to what Kirkpatrick level do you most frequently measure? So the keyword in this question is most frequently. To what Kirkpatrick level do you most frequently measure? Because I'm interested to know what the responses to that is. So are they reaction, learning, behavior, or results? So you might think, well, why have you chosen Kirkpatrick, Phil? So I'm a big fan of the Kirkpatrick model. It was the first evaluation model I was ever introduced to back in 2000. And I've done a lot of work with it ever since. And Emotion at Work, the company that I run, so Emotion at Work is the UK's affiliate for Kirkpatrick programs. And also I'm the UK's only certified trainer on Kirkpatrick Bronze and Silver programs as well. And I think Kirkpatrick gets a bit of a bad rep, but I'm not going to get on the defensive today in terms of why I think it gets a bad rep. What I'm more interested in doing is finding out what are some of the challenges that you face with measuring training impact, which I'll come on to shortly. So let's close this poll then in 10. So I'll give you a bit longer. So only 77% of people have participated so far. So we've got 35 people on the call, only 27 have participated. So if you haven't done so yet, you've got 10 more seconds then to cast your votes. So what Kirkpatrick level do you most frequently measure? Is it reaction, learning, behavior, or results? And we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll stop it there. Okay. So what we can see then is that learning is the most frequently measured at 39%, and then reaction and behavior are tied at 21%, and then the one we measure least frequently, although we still do measure, is 18% up at results for level 4. So I think what's interesting for me in this one is that the split roughly is 60-40. So 60 sort of level 1, level 2, and then 40 level 3, level 4. And I would argue that as training providers, that probably stacks up in terms of, because as training providers, when we have people who are engaging in learning or development activity with us, we've got a degree of control over that in terms of, and we've got a bit of direct influence on the extent to which people will give us the data that we need. When individuals then go back into an organization, it can be harder for us to gather that data to demonstrate that people are using the behaviors that we want them to be using, and it can be harder to demonstrate impact on results. So that sort of 60-40 distribution would stack up for me, because as I said, at level 1, level 2, I think we've got more direct influence and control. Level 3, level 4, it's harder because they're back in a system that we don't necessarily always have kind of open access to. And so my next question, which isn't a poll-based question then, so this is a question that is a big open question, is what gets in the way of you evaluating at level 3 and level 4 more often? So what gets in the way of you evaluating at level 3 behavior and level 4 results more often than you currently do? And if you'd be willing to let me know in the chat what that might be, that would be amazing. Okay, so Ali, fastest fingers first. Thank you, Ali. Is the access to data for it? Absolutely. I understand that completely, Ali. I have similar challenges myself. Gail says the client's willingness or their capabilities to share the data. Might come back to you in a minute, Gail, if it's all right, and ask you a bit more about the willingness and the capability bit. I think that's a useful distinction to look into. As I got a couple of thumbs up as well. And I know I've asked a big question, so the chances are people are continuing to type, and that's okay. So we'll keep an eye on other responses that come in. While waiting for those responses, then Gail, can I ask you to come off mute if that'd be okay? So what, when you talk about willingness and capability, what does that mean for you?
Yes. So can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes. So you've got, well, I've got two types of clients. You've got those who really would like to measure impact, but the L&D department is a little bit segregated, so they don't really know how to tap into other departments to access data. They all obviously have the big surveys, but then some interventions are about employee satisfactions, but some of the interventions are harder to pinpoint to that, especially if you measure for a year or 18 months afterwards. So that's but then there are some people who are simply not willing to share data. So for them, they've done the jobs, they've done the need analysis, they've decided that that what the organization was needed, and we're here to do that. And that's a very difficult situation to be in, because it's really hard to measure impact at that level. So that's why, in my personal view, and I'm very interested in your platform, and is that I'm really trying to at least find solution where you can measure behavior impact, but at cohort level. Because that's actually, as a provider, that the only data we can possibly access.
Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Thank you, Gail. And then Ali B, if that would be okay. I'm conscious I've got a couple of Ali. So it was Ali B, whose contribution was the access to data for it. Ali, would you mind just expanding on that a little bit for me? And then Neil will come to you afterwards, if that's okay. So Ali?
Yeah, no problem at all. It's not much beyond what Gail said, but it's kind of also knowing which data to collect, but also the lead time. So what you're training for, sometimes there's a particular lead time by which you'll see the changes in behavior or whatever. And it's even just that, it's even being able to get that data at the right time, and being able to sort of isolate, okay, this is where the training's having the impact. Which with something like leadership, for example, how do you isolate the impact of your training on that particular outcome?
Yeah.
But as Gail said, yeah, just access, people being willing to and or able to.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ali. That's wonderful. And then Neil, we'll come to you if that's all right. So you've gone for 3 things of time, resources, and clients. So yeah, Neil, do you want to expand on that for me?
Yeah, thanks very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, clear as a bell.
That's great. And you're no longer looking at my keyboard as well, which is good. So hopefully better anyway. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would love to measure at the highest level, looking at, as an economist, net additional impacts and how we get a blend of quantitative and qualitative, so we show what the enduring value of it actually is, and we can track that over time. But that's a bit idealistic, and I've been in practice for over 30 years, and I do find that even if I've got this desire to do it, I don't actually have the time to do it, unless I'm feeling really charitable and stay up forever till 2 in the morning repeatedly and skip holidays, etc. And it becomes fairly academic as an exercise, because I'm not getting rewarded in terms of financially or indeed recognition for going that extra degree. And so I think the proportionality question is really important, and the reward is really important also. But there's a big risk in this, and I don't mean for me personally as a services provider, but in terms of the entire system and the multi-billion-pound market that was mentioned earlier on by Jan. I think looking at value for money and the durability of change and how we match needs and wants is really, really important. And it's often skirted over because we're replying to a set system within frameworks that have been long established, and we're responding to wants rather than needs. So how do we influence the actual need and the questions that are being asked, and the extent to which we can go and answer those questions? Again, there's proportionality. Where should we focus and why? Where are the priority areas, and what delivers the most impact, and how we can work with clients and organizations in a better way that makes a difference in terms of the quality of life. That will all come through in terms of better data. It will come through in better commissioning, better input to policy decision making, and ultimately some systemic change, I would like to think. But that might take more than another 30 years, and I don't think I'll be around practicing to make that happen. But I'm happy to share insights and help others to take on that torch. But there are very real limitations to going beyond. But I agree with you, Phil. I think Kirkpatrick is very, very useful, and simple frameworks lead to really good value results. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Neil. What was the, my hand wasn't fast enough to pick up my pen at the beginning. So you said you're interested in net
Net additional impacts. So if you take,
additional impact.
you can
Love
get
that.
gross effects and say, yeah, things are really good, and I got a job, but was that job to taking somebody else out of the picture, or was it denying a progressive path for somebody else in their learning and development? And is there a better way of shuffling the pack so that we holistically see what the net additional impact actually is?
Lovely. I've not heard that phrase before.
Oh, that's my economist language. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm happy to. I'm not advertising here, but I'm happy to share any thoughts and anything, white papers or whatever we want to develop in the future with you guys. Anybody on the call, more than happy to expand on that or explore ideas.
Wonderful. Thank you, Neil.
I like that point on net additional impacts, because a lot of people also talk about ROI, and there are some different thoughts on that. Although it's a much used term, there are also some authors that are saying, well, ROI is not actually a relevant impact that you could apply to training anyway. So what I'm concluding is that a lot of people within the industry are still finding their feet on what terms to use and what metrics to actually measure. So it's still very much a growing up that we're doing here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jan. So we've got one more from Zainab. So Zainab, if it's okay, I'll come to you shortly. I'll just do a bit of a context setting or signaling before I do. So Zainab will come to you in just a moment. So what I'm keen to do is move the discussion from what gets in the way, which is the question that I asked, to, well, what do we do about it then? And so I'm going to, what I'll do first is give Jan the floor. After we'll hear from Zainab, and then I'll say, well, what do we do about these challenges? So the challenges we've identified in no particular order. Neil, in terms of time, resources. Okay, Zainab, I won't come your way then. That's fine. No worries. That's okay. Thank you. Don't worry, it's all right. No apology needed. So we've got access to data from Ali, Gail, the client's willingness and capabilities, Neil, time, resources, and clients, and Zainab saying not being fast enough, so not responsive and not purposeful, so not being fast enough in doing it. And then Anna, I've seen SROI used to measure impacts on training. So I'll come to you then, Anna, shortly, if that's okay, in terms of SROI and what that means. And then what I'm going to do is open the floor to, well, what do we do about these challenges then? So either what do you do in your own practice? What experiences have you seen successful, and how has that worked? So I'll offer the opportunity to Jan, then I'll add my thoughts, and then I'll kind of open the floor up, because we've got loads of expertise in the room. It's not just the case that me as the host and Jan as the sponsor know everything. So we're keen to get that kind of wisdom of the room involved as well. So Anna, would you just be willing to tell us a bit more about the SROI?
So yeah, sure. So I hope that Jan was talking about the same in terms of ROI. So SROI is the social return on investment. So as a methodology, I've seen it apply a lot, especially in the UK. So and also embedding sustainability, right? Sustainable development goals. So if you are even more socially oriented, and then that's a methodology that I've seen, and building on concept on input, outputs, outcomes, and then calculating ROI. So that's all. And then just if I just pick one more thing, I'm in executive education, so I guess that one of the challenges is also in terms of units, and saying like when you just had like one full day training. Where do you set the idea of your unit? Is it just an idea with businesses and performance, like knowing that maybe they will not improve their strategy during one day of training, right? So yeah, so the challenges of units and measurement, and how do you frame this? So that's all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. All right then. So Jan, let's come to you then. Couple of minutes from you on yeah, these things that get in the way of maybe evaluating at level 3 and level 4 more often. Yeah, what would be your thoughts on them?
Well, what do we do about them? I am going to come back to Anna's SROI, by the way, but first, what do we do about them is the point for us to deliver and create this platform, INMISCEO SIP, which basically started with a lot of people talk about compliance training and then behavioral change. And if you look at that, you cannot change behavior in a one-day training about compliance. So that's kind of where the thinking started from. Well, how can we then measure that? Because measurement is the beginning of everything if you want to change something. And secondly, there is then the element of time. A one-day course doesn't change behavior. So how much time do you need? So we decided to create something after a lot of research that makes it open-ended. You need the 0-point measurement, which is the training needs analysis. That's quite often what it's called. So you need to enable people to do that. A lot of feedback was that already that part quite often was not given. So as Gail said and other people, there is no access to data. So you need to enable access to data, the collection of that. But within the spirit of what I explained earlier about our business and our belief is that you need to be able to share it out. So the next thing, what we are going to do about it is once we have the platform up and running and we have a lot of people using it, then we intend to make that data that we collect available to all the training providers that are also contributing to it. So you can start seeing trends. If one company does this, every statistician will tell you there's no proof that this worked or didn't work. However, once we collect this for a couple of years and we have thousands of, hopefully more than that, of data points, and we give people access to this, then you can query this on and training people in this sector, in this particular job role, in this particular way, blended or instructor-led or whatever it takes. Over this period of time, we saw these kind of results. So people need to start seeing some best practice. And that is what we long-term want to do with this. Because quite often the other way of measuring is, and everybody will usually tell you this, you need a control group. That's usually where it starts. However, in most situations, there is no control group. You're training the sales team. There's no other sales team that you can use as a control group. So by lack of a control group, I believe that a lot of data is the answer here. And that's what we're trying to do over the longer term with this platform. And that's our response to what can we do about it. I'm going to leave it at that for that point. I just want to come back to Anna, which SROI. I really like that term. I've seen it used as well by, for example, we did this conference we've been referring to, where the Greater London Authority was presenting about how they measure training impact for London, which is a £342 million budget per year to train over 100,000 people. And social impact is a big part of that. How do people improve their lives? Did people get jobs? So this is a term that's more and more used. I only comment on that. In my research, I found that most people are looking for quantifiable metrics. So how many people found jobs is a great quantifiable metric, but how happier people were is a bit more difficult to do, I think. And that's to quantify things is a key element, I think, of measuring impact. That's all I wanted to say for that.
Wonderful, thank you, Jan. So I'll add two quick thoughts then. So one for me is I think when we think about behavior, we need to turn it around a different way. So rather than thinking about behavior in terms of what's changed, to what's changed now as a result of what was happening before, I think we need to look at behavior in terms of what behaviors are going to drive results. And those are the behaviors that we need to look for. So rather than looking at behavior as a big, broad topic in terms of that's really hard to pin down in terms of what behaviors have changed now as a result of this thing, be really specific to say, these are the behaviors that are needed to be displayed by the trainees or the participants or the audience or the target group or whoever it is. These are the behaviors that need to be displayed every day to drive that result. And then what we need to monitor is those behaviors. Are they happening? If so, why? If not, why not? And then monitoring the impact of what of how they then drive those, or the extent to which they then drive those results. So that's one. The second thing I would do is building on both the SROI and the net additional impact that Neil mentioned, is establish what indicators the organization or your clients use to measure success before you begin the project. And are there existing benchmarks that you can use to help give you that baseline data? Because sometimes you can't gather baseline data. It's hard to do, time consuming, clients don't want to pay for it. So what existing data can you use as a baseline in comparison with where you might want to go? Would be the two things I would think about. So now then, I want to throw it open to the floor. So you've heard from Jan, you've heard from me. What other experiences do we have in the room in terms of what would you do, or what have you done, or what do you do to overcome some of these challenges about evaluating at level 3 and level 4 more often?
Okay, is it okay if I start?
Please, Carsten. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Thank you, Carsten.
So we tend to work, and we actually have a policy within our company that it is long term. So we do learning and development and diversity, equity, and inclusion training. So both of those things require, behavior change and results ultimately. When we've been working with an organization in particular, we work with a large funding body in Scotland, and we worked with them for 1.5 years. And throughout that time, we were basically working with the upper management, and we were kind of doing the assessments based on their feedback and our input. So it was sort of an ongoing conversation. When we've worked with learning and development, in particular, we've done leadership training with an investment bank. We just couldn't get information from them at all. So it was like we do the training and then they just shut down until the next year when they wanted us to do it again. And then they say, yes, it's really successful, but they wouldn't give us the data at all. And in the end, we've actually had to rely on kind of feedback from the participants themselves. And we've heard anecdotally that it's very successful. It's about 90% kind of progression within that cohort that we've trained. But we don't know what the progression means. We don't know, we don't have the empirical data that we can use to kind of really properly evaluate what the impact is. But those are the things we've sort of had to do. But we find that, like you say, with behavior training, long term, you kind of get to have a conversation with the management team and work out how you're going to measure impact. And often it can be impact on how they communicate, their communications. Is it more successful than it was, etc., etc.
Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Thank you, Carsten. Gail, I can see that your hand's up. I've also just clocked the time. Oh my goodness, where has that 43 minutes gone? So Jan, do you want to pop that slide back up for me, so that if people want to take to use the QR codes, either to join the first mover group and or to sign up to our newsletter if they want some more hints and tips around evaluation. And then Gail, with the prefix that you've got about 70 seconds before we wrap up.
Yes, sure. I'll try to stick to 30 seconds because I think I touched on it when I did my previous comments, is that like Carsten, I'm really working on behavior change. So for me, I work in the digital environment. So I use apps to evaluate micro behaviors. And so that's something we can see at cohort level. We can see the area of strength that's growing. It takes a bit of time. It's not, obviously, it's not instant, but it can get a fairly reliable pictures. It's a bit like a 360, but it can be a good, reliable pictures of elements of progress, which is, as you said, I think at the conference, is something that can be measured.
Yeah,
and it's a little bit is better than nothing, I guess.
It's better than nothing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gail. And also, I love Zainab's comment in the chat as well. Thank you, Zainab. I know you're in an environment, so thank you for contributing in the chat about giving the accountability and power to staff to show you their progress against the benchmarks in their organizations. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving up your lunch hour. Thank you so much for coming along and joining us today. Jan, something you would like to say in closing?
Other than a huge thank you to Phil and all the participants today in contributing. Thanks so much for hosting today, Phil, and look forward to any questions that might come out of this. Let's continue this conversation.
Wonderful. All right, in that case, have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.